Our society spares no cost to stop serial killers who kill with intent and take the lives of 2 or more victims. However, in Barrie, Ontario, a slow form of killing continues with almost no sense of urgency or even care. Homeless residents are dying under policies that create predictable and preventable harm. This is called social murder. The term was coined in 1845 by Friedrich Engels, who wrote that when leaders knowingly allow lethal conditions to continue, they are as responsible as if they killed by violence. Nearly 2 centuries later, we see this play out in Barrie. Mayor Alex Nuttall has admitted that what he perceived to be a personal slight by the previous mayor and council drives his actions against the unhoused. His grievance has become, at least to him, justification for policies that will kill fellow human beings.
6 years ago, on March 5th, 2019, I requested Barrie City Mayor and Council to declare a state of emergency to properly manage the opioid emergency and ancillary impacts of homelessness and lawlessness, but was ignored.
Nuttall presents a campaign of self-vindication, a need to prove he was right, and his self-glorifying, grandiose performance is common amongst pusillanimous men with fragile egos who often unknowingly display the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. Nuttall won the office of mayor on October 24, 2022, by only 777 votes, with support from just over 12% of the eligible electorate. As he was elected in a position of weakness, he governs through intimidation. Clergy and counselors describe him as a bully who needs to yell until he gets what he wants, which for the most part is subjugation.
What I'm doing is I'm tired of talking to the mayor. I'm tired of being shouted at. I'm tired of being insulted. I'm tired of sitting through meetings for hours and hours and hours where he's belligerent and horrible and nasty and insulting to us. And so I've given up on that conversation. And so for me personally, I'm organizing acts of defiance.
One of Alex Nuttall's first acts as mayor was to try to circumvent democracy by pushing bylaws through council that would have criminalized compassion for those in need. Proposed bylaws would have made offering food, water, or the tools of survival to homeless people a finable offense. Protesters filled City Hall, and media from across Ontario reported about it. Had those laws passed, the homeless crisis would have been solved by starvation and exposure. It was a policy designed to eliminate people, rather than resolve the crisis. These policies did not spare anyone, including seniors, disabled people, those with mental illness, or veterans of the armed forces. People who defended the country were told to leave the city as they were not welcome. In 2025, Nuttall posed for photographs at Remembrance Day while simultaneously ordering police to evict some of those same veterans from their only shelter. We found no record of his own service. Questions of integrity follow Nuttall's career. Nuttall has twice faced allegations of election fraud, provincially and federally, several years apart. Sources say Nuttall did not leave federal politics by choice. According to inside sources, he was pressured out before facing further scrutiny. Very few people walk away from Parliament 2 years before earning a full pension. Despite this record, Alex Nuttall now demands $100 million to respond to homelessness in a city that is far from Canada's most severely affected. Toronto has more than 15,000 unhoused people, about 15 times as many as Barrie. Regardless, Toronto's Mayor Chow is not asking for the equivalent of $1.5 billion. In Barrie, even when overestimating to 1,000 unhoused residents, Nuttall seeks roughly $100,000 per person. For perspective, $100 million in $1 bills would cover 2 football fields. That could build thousands of small homes that Nuttall simply refuses to consider. The question is, who would control this money? A new not-for-profit called Barrie Cares, founded by people connected to Nuttall and with no history of working with the unhoused, appeared just as major funding became possible. Meanwhile, the long-standing Busby Center has been pushed to the background. It raises questions familiar from other cities. In Los Angeles, a $1.2 billion homelessness program ballooned in cost. Construction delays, consultant fees, and corruption left many units far over budget, and much of the money simply vanished. History shows that when there is a large pot of public money, embezzlement soon follows. Alex Nuttall is now trying to draw on various levels of government to raise $100 million, which he claims is suddenly needed to resolve a serious life and death social issue of homelessness that he has blatantly ignored for more than 3 full years. Now that we are less than a year away from the next election, it comes as no surprise that Alex Nuttall now, more than 1,000 days too late, has a plan to build the shelter space and affordable housing he has refused to make available, and of course most of it coming next year, or whenever works best for his re-election campaign. During his years in office, Alex Nuttall has managed to come up with 30 overnight pods to satisfy the survival needs of the 1,000 people for whom he is seeking $100,000 each in support. Few of us can imagine finding a job where we could make $200,000 a year to accomplish only 3% of the expectations of the employer, who in this case are the taxpayers and voters of Barrie. Alex Nuttall has also been publicly blaming the victims rather than working to resolve the crisis, and he has used the Barrie Police Service to goose step over the rights of these citizens of Canada. During the bitter cold -30-degree temperatures, Alex Nuttall refused to open a warming center and eventually did so only after public pressure gave him little if any choice. This shows how much he cared before the money truck arrived. We also cannot forget that Alex Nuttall has been accused twice, at both the provincial and federal levels, of committing election fraud. Would you ask a serial arsonist to house sit for you, or hire a twice-accused child molester to babysit your toddler? $100 million is a dream to any grifter, so why are we even considering putting that much trust in a career politician who has been accused multiple times of betraying the best interests of voters and taxpayers, and who clearly does not give a damn about those who are supposed to be the beneficiaries of that support? On Wednesday, October 1st, 2025, City Council revived what amounts to duplicate versions of the earlier abandoned bylaws. These supposedly new policies were rushed through with neither public warning nor any opportunity for taxpayer or expert review. The mayor ordered that concerned citizens could not protest, but those who came to be heard cited their right to freedom of expression under Section 2B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which far exceeds the authority of the mayor of Canada's 22nd least significant city. The public spoke out and were met with uniformed security and police. However, in the end, both backed off, citing the right of citizens to protest in our democracy. Then, on Sunday, October 19, 2025, a group of local clergy from various denominations raised public awareness through a day of public protest.
We organized this day really to protest the understanding that our city is not a place of compassion and kindness. We want to make Barrie a city of compassion and kindness. We want to ensure that everybody who calls Barrie home knows what that compassion and kindness looks like.
Both groups warned that the unpopular decisions by the elected officials will lead to avoidable deaths, but the mayor and council showed no compassion for those who would perish. If in any other circumstance, a vulnerable victim is left to die by exposure in a harsh environment without the necessities of life, the charge of murder or attempted homicide soon follows. While the comparison must be measured, the pattern is in line with any national government that is run by an authoritarian who attacks a specific group based on unique criteria, such as a socioeconomic group that is being displaced and threatened solely due to their extreme level of poverty.
This is my house. This is my home. Excuse me.
Stop.
Please. You're on my property.
Okay, they are taking someone's home.
please.
She's telling them that they're taking her
My
home.
stuff.
Continue.
Continue taking someone's
I've
home
already
apart.
asked you guys to stop doing this and to leave it alone. This is where I live.
This is her home. This is a human rights violation.
Rights have been suspended under a legally unstable state of emergency, and poverty has become cause for punishment rather than support. When council members comply, they share responsibility for the inevitable social murder. New policies that appeared to coincide with the state of emergency call for police or city staff to collect the tents, sleeping bags, blankets, and other necessities of survival that they find at the encampments they are displacing, that they then dispose of as garbage. Previously, encampments were mostly left alone in the winter, so that those forced to live in a tent in -30 degrees could at least build some kind of insulated structure reinforced by boards or pallets that would be able to stand up to the weight of snow and at mostly deflect much of the sub-0 degree winds. By taking away and destroying what little these people have, the City of Barrie and the Barrie Police Service are dooming them to wander the streets with no kind of protection. Nuttall is reported to bully his counselors, and as we have seen, similar allegations are made by those in the church who oppose his dictatorial style of leadership. Immediately after we announced our intent to file an ethics complaint against Alex Nuttall for misappropriating city property and personnel for personal gain, city officials attempted to use property standards authority to intimidate us. When we demanded a hearing and presented the evidence for review by a tribunal, property standards dropped the claim. At 𝗓𝘃𝘁 Park, officers of the Barrie Police Service arrested our producer, an established media professional and former international journalist, because he was recording those officers and city staff abusing the rights of Canadian citizens. When he forced the false allegation to trial, the legal department for the City of Barrie withdrew the charge, citing the reason as being no hope of conviction. The real reason for the duck and cover was to enable Alex Nuttall to evade being summoned to be questioned under oath and against our evidence. Neither the mayor nor any member of council has ever challenged our reporting through legitimate means. What is happening in Barrie mirrors larger global patterns. When leaders seek power above the law and others around them stay silent, the suffering of the vulnerable becomes inevitable. Those who enable injustice are accountable for the results, including the deaths that follow due to social murder. Researchers describe homelessness as the clearest modern example of social murder. Deaths are predictable, preventable, and caused by research choices. People who are unhoused die many years earlier than the general population. These are failures of government support and healthcare, not personal failings of individuals. Alex Nuttall and his council have not only refused to build shelter, they have ordered the elimination of all encampments and the destruction of emergency housing constructed by the desperate residents at Flat Rock who wanted only a warm place to live. Police cleared the area and heavy machinery demolished insulated structures that could have saved many lives. Homicide allegedly committed by one man in the homeless community was used to justify the act, but when a femicide occurred several months later, no uninvolved housed residents were displaced, and no third-party property was destroyed. The inconsistency reveals intent. These actions by the City of Barrie and the Barrie Police Service violated Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the 2023 Superior Court Order of Justice 𝗔𝗹𝗄𝘁 that demands cities acknowledge tents and encampments as homes with all the same rights. This was not an act of lawful governance, but was an emotional decision by a weak man with a 6-year-old grudge against a previous mayor and council who needed to prove that he, and only he, is right. Sadly, the result of Alex Nuttall's rampant insecurity was human beings finding themselves abandoned and left out in the cold, without protection, with a high potential to die due to social murder. Encampments continue to be evicted, and journalists are blocked or arrested if they attempt to exercise their guaranteed rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to record the abuses of city staff and officers of the Barrie Police Service. Mayor Alex Nuttall and his sycophants in council are also fully aware of what they are doing, as is easily demonstrated by the fact that City Hall has withdrawn every attempt to abuse the law to intimidate those who will not toe the line to a dictatorship built on subjugation. When challenged, bullies run away. Those suffering in the homeless community are told to move their only shelter every few days instead of being allowed to prepare proper insulated shelter for winter. Only about 120 shelter beds exist in Barrie. With roughly 700 to 800 people unhoused, almost 7 out of 10 human beings suffering homelessness have nowhere to go. Some will be bused to small towns that do not have the services they need. Many will not survive due to the active campaign of social murder. Across Canada and beyond, policy critics argue that this is intentional neglect. Chronic underfunding, unsafe spaces, and lack of care create conditions in which illness spreads and death is common. Some call it public health malpractice. Violence against unhoused people is also part of this reality, and constant policing of encampments increases risk. Sweeps destroy stability and support systems. And when leaders choose enforcement instead of protection, they choose death over protection, but evade accountability. Homelessness is the result of structural failures in our government and society. Lack of affordable housing, low assistance rates, underfunded mental health care, and wage stagnation all lead to social murder. When these factors persist over decades, resulting in avoidable deaths, responsibility lies with those who permit it. Predictability equals responsibility when perpetuating policies that result in social murder. Seeing homelessness through this lens changes the narrative. These are not isolated tragedies. They are the price paid for political neglect, which can also be intentional. Naming it social murder forces accountability for leaders like Alex Nuttall and his council. It also forces society to acknowledge the lives lost under decisions made in warm offices, far from the streets, where people freeze to death in tents during days when the temperature does not rise above -30 degrees. By knowingly allowing the continuation of a system of negligence and denial of the necessities of survival that is killing fellow human beings, Mayor Alex Nuttall and his obedient councillors are killing or knowingly potentially causing the deaths of those trapped in the homeless community, no different than if they had used violence. These entrusted elected officials have established malicious and often unlawful municipal policies, which serve only to cause the deaths of multiple human beings. The premeditated and intentional nature of their actions makes them all accountable for committing or abetting social murder. On October 26, 2026, use your power to vote against this policy of social murder and to choose instead to support compassion.
Official statistics estimate there were approximately 81,515 Ontarians surviving as homeless in 2024, a 25% increase since 2022. Unofficial estimates, shared with provincial ministers in late 2024, suggested the true number to be as high as 234,000. As of January 8, 2026, reports highlight a massive surge in public and political demand for compassionate and humanitarian responses to Ontario's homelessness crisis. More than 80% of Ontarians want the government to prioritize a housing-first approach, not an abuse of charter rights as is currently being used in Barrie. Advocates emphasize that stable housing with wraparound supports is 15 times cheaper than emergency hospital stays. In December 2025, the mayors of Ontario's 29 largest cities urged the province to declare a state of emergency to handle the crisis as a humanitarian disaster. Alex Nuttall's approach, after declaring a state of emergency, has been to oppress the rights of citizens based solely on them suffering in extreme poverty. The future of our city council is our choice, and we do not have to comply with inhumane policies intended to make the crisis magically disappear through social murder.